Okay, do another test.
Test.
Okay, I think that should be good.
All right. Well, if everybody's had something to eat, my name is Daryle Foulke. I'm a software consultant here at Search Allies, and I'm going to be talking to you about how you can use AI to go from one language to another. And this was actually born out of a real-life test case that we had at one of my clients. Sadly, we had a team that is mostly a Java and a Go team, and we had one application that was in Python. It's a very small application, but no one really knew how to really work on it too much. The one guy who created it had left the company, and so we spent a morning with our AI, and we rewrote it in Go. And so we're going to do a little bit of the same thing here, but only since this is the Python group, we'll convert it to Python. So, let me, and we are going to have a live demo today. I'm literally going to, it takes about 6 minutes. We can watch the good old AI go to town and watch it translate and do all this stuff. We'll talk about some pitfalls and some best practices and why we went about doing this. And then you have a post-migration checklist and QA, although I do plan on this being more of a question and answer type of whole thing. So if you have any questions in the middle, let me know, stop me. Because I also tend to talk really fast, and I want to make sure I slow down a little bit and that you guys all get what we're doing here. But what we're going to do is, and this is just a test application I have here. This is a very simple. This application goes out to Reddit, pulls down some Reddit threads, and then puts it into a log so you can read them. And right now it's in TypeScript, and I will be showing you that here in just a second. But why do something like this? I think one of the best reasons is, like I said, we all have legacy code that's sitting out there, and whether you're going from an older version of Python to a newer version of Python, or even going from Java to Python or TypeScript to Python, this is something that can at least get you started. I always feel if the AI can get you 75% of the way there, you can figure the rest of it out pretty quickly. So let's see what we're going to do. Like I said, we got a small TypeScript application that we're going to convert it to Python. We're going to use, currently I'm using the Opus but I have other models, some of them with less success than others. The Opus and Sonnet are the Claude models, I guess, seem like they work the best for me. ChatGPT, and I think there was one other that did not work nearly as well. Had a lot more manual updates I had to do. But the Claude ones, as you'll see here in a bit, hopefully, is really smooth for at least a very simple program. So here's the prompt that I'm going to use. I have a project that's in TypeScript, and I want to go to Python. I'm going to use UV for my package manager. I want it to convert all the modules into Python. I want it to convert all the tests. I want to make sure the tests run. And I want to update the README and get it going. And not it.
Hey, question. Did you feel like that was stuff that you knew to prompt because of your knowledge of TypeScript and Python, or to what degree did you ask Claude, like, what should I do to make this happen?
That's a very good question. So one of the things I did was I actually came up with most of this prompt myself. That being said, when I was done, I asked Claude, I said, how can I make this prompt better? And it is the one who suggested to do the get ignore and the readme and to format it a little bit better. I had some stuff in some different spots, and Opus told me that by putting it in this order, it was better for it. So that's a good question. That was something that I did ask him for. Let's go. Can you guys see that okay? Yeah. So this is my TypeScript application. It literally just goes out to, it's a Reddit scraper. It goes out. I ran it this morning and created these files and results. So like here's the Python one. So you open it up and it shows you who. So it shows you the title, the author, or where it was posted, and all that. And as you can see, it pulls, I think, the last 7 days, I think people had it set up. I did this as just a test program like a year ago, just to see if I could write a decent scraper and it worked. But I already have this sitting here, and this is that exact same prompt that I had. You have the title, all that good jazz. Let's give it a try and see what it does. Like I said, I am using Claude Opus 4.7. I tried it in 4.6. I tried it in Sonnet 4.6. And what else did I try it in? I think I had ChatGPT for 5. I don't think 5 was out yet. That may have been about it. I didn't try it in Grok or anything like that. But this should take about 4 or 5 minutes while that's running. Does anybody have any questions? No, we can sit here and just watch it. But, you know, it is just running in the background, and you'll see it. So if you look at the test files, and these are all TS files, so they're all TypeScript. And as part of this, Claude will be converting them to Python, and we'll be removing these. And we can see it came up with a plan, and now we'll start to work through the plan. It's already started rewriting the actual code into Python, and it looks like it's just getting ready to start some of the tests. And honestly, this is about as simple as it's going to, and I know this is a very simple application, but if you think about this, you know, you're struggling with a legacy application, or you're struggling with an application that is built in a language you're not familiar with, and no one on your team is really familiar with, then you could literally just have AI rewrite it for you into a language you're more familiar with, and it will be pretty darn close. And something this simple will get you all the way. I even have the first line of this is keep track of how long it takes. Because I was curious as to.
I'm not familiar with this set. I haven't used it ever. So can you talk about like what that is and what assistant this uses, like what AI coding assistant and what your experience with that has been like?
Sure. I have used both, or I've used VS Code pretty extensively. I've used IntelliJ quite a bit, and I really started to use Zed more lately. Zed is an open source. They call it the next generation code editor. It's completely written in Rust. One of the main things is it's designed for its front end or its GUI interface is a basically a gaming engine. So it starts up really quick and going from file to file and doing stuff is really quick. What I'm doing right now is they have their own AI interface that you can plug in your, like in my case, I plugged in my Copilot key, but they also have a Copilot agent that will actually run it just like you're running it out of VS Code, including any skills or any sub-agent stuff that you have in there. And yeah, so, and if you're interested, they are at that's zed.dev, and go check them out. They're pretty good.
You said Copilot, you mean Claude?
So this is running Claude through Copilot.
Oh, through Copilot, oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, I only have a Copilot account.
Yeah.
So even though I'm running it through Zed's internal AI structure, it's still running through Copilot. And then if I come over here, I'm not going to do it because it's still working, but I can actually start up I can actually start up a Copilot agent, a GitHub Copilot agent, and then it will run it just like you're running it through VS Code. So, as you can see now, there's no more TypeScript files. There's no more TypeScript tests. Everything is rewritten in Python. It ran the test. Everything worked just fine. I even had it calling me my liege. That way I know that it's using my Copilot instructions that's in here because they tell it to call me my liege. So it's a simple way to know that it's actually picking up your Copilot instructions. And now what I can do is I can come down here. So it rewrote my README file here, and I can now even come down here and as you can see the end results folder now empty because the first thing it does is wipe out the previous run. And it's going to go and it started to pull from Reddit. Now this process does take a little bit longer. If you run Reddit scrapes and you hit it fast, they rate you. So I had to put in a timeout on it. But as you can see, it's already starting to pull down. So like here's the TypeScript. And it's simply got the title, the author, the score, the post time, what the actual text was, and URL and all that good stuff. So we just took a complete TypeScript application and we converted it to Python using AI, and we did not make any other changes other than run. And it worked just fine. Now I know this is a very simple thing. This isn't, a production ready application. When we did this on my team, we took probably about a morning for about 2-3 hours to get it converted over. And yeah, we haven't had any problems with it yet. So it took me some pitfalls that you have when you're running something like this. If I was to do this in production, obviously I would not have just ran my prompt, checked everything in, threw it out in production, and said, hey, everything's good. You can have some package mismatches, and you have to make sure that you're pulling down everything, that you're not using like a road plugin or something like that. But most part, things that I wanted to do. And it did it in a way that made sense. I could go back and I could follow along, and I could see what it's doing. And it just worked, which is nice. So, one of the things that I think really helped me a lot with this is I had a really good set of acceptance tests. When I first wrote this project in TypeScript, I was really trying to learn test-driven development. So I had a very extensive set of tests that I could run. So that really does help when you're converting it like this, because you convert the test, it will try and run the test, and it will try to fix anything that fails. The other thing you can do is really try to do some make your changes small. And that's, the more prompts you have, you saw the prompt had some different bullet points. The more bullet points, the better. You can try to be very specific on what you want to do. And then, like I said, the model is very important. I did try this with ChatGPT and it did not go well at all. I did Sonnet 4.6, did a really good job. It just took longer, but it did a pretty decent job. I think I had to make one small change after Sonnet 4.6. But yeah, it was really about that simple. And then finally, I had AI come up with some, hey, how would you check to make sure this is right? And this was Claude's suggestion. Okay, make sure you suggest that everything is formatted correctly. If not, whatever language you're going to, you're about to be weird. And how to do a performance and a test. And then obviously, like I said, if this was something that was going into production or whatever, you would really want to make sure you're doing a security check and make sure that it's not using a patent license or something like that. But what I learned that you can actually do this. When we did this at my plant, I was astonished that it worked. I really thought that it would be just easier to write it by hand. And I was wrong. But like I said, what didn't work, and what parts that didn't work were, we had everything hooked up through AWS. And we were using GitHub Actions to deploy all our stuff. And those things did not convert over nearly as well as I thought. And you would think since those are mostly paste, they would, but it did not like how some of the AWS configuration stuff was set. And I'm not 100% sure why. I didn't know if maybe I should have specified that in or we should have specified that in our prompt. But yeah, that was probably the biggest surprise for me when we did this for a while. And then finally, do we have any questions?
So when you said you used ChatGPT and it did not work as well as you thought it would, could you give some examples of how it failed?
So ChatGPT seemed like it rewrote, I don't know if it rewrote the code first and then rewrote the test, but the test kept failing. And it just kept iterating over the test over and over and over again. And then by the time it finally got the test to pass, it had changed some of the code around in ways that I didn't like. And like I said, that could be a prompting thing. You know, maybe if I would have sort of towards the end, if I would have said, hey, how could I write a prompt that would do this better? Maybe ChatGPT would let's tell it to go to a different language. Let's see what it does. So we just converted this to Python. Let's tell it. Let's convert it from Python to Go.
Just essentially write the prompt.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's an awesome idea. Let's see what it comes up with. I will say Claude 4.7 is a little slower than Claude 4.6. Yes, I do. So, we just converted this from TypeScript to Python. Now we're going to convert to Go. You see it's already starting. And files are still Python files, but it's working. Sometimes it asks a question. Yeah. So you can go, you know, so it's already starting to write the Go files.
Another question for you.
Sure.
Well, it's running. So, I mean, this, you'd have to do conversion for, like a giant project, but like your test project, did you happen to try prompting just to write from scratch? Like a Reddit scraper?
I do not.
Yeah, I was just curious how close it would look to your other code, when if you asked it to do the same thing, but do it itself. Curious.
It probably would be fairly. I did. I remember when I first did this project. It was last year. I think after I was done, I had whatever model I had at the time to take a look at it and make any suggestions. So it probably would look somewhat similar.
Yeah.
Because it did make some suggestions. Yeah. And like I said, my thinking is with something like this is if it can get you 75%, 80% there, then you go from having an application that no one wanted to work on, no one really knew how to work on. You could be like, hey, we all know how to use Python, we all know how to use Go. So now you have an application you don't necessarily feel bad about working on. as the project gets more complex, like more various systems, kind of hard to handle the testing. So what are some things that you guys did to make sure that I'm not sure really had to talk about the functionality of the application? Yeah, and I will say one of the things I think that made it easier for us, and like I said, we did have, there was probably about 3 of us that worked for a few, 2-3 hours afterwards to get it to actually work really well. So it wasn't like it was completely like painless. But I will say, going from Python to Go, Python is a pretty descriptive and straightforward language. So I think that helped us out a little bit. If you were going from, maybe C or C++ or something to Rust or whatever, maybe you have a worse time because it's just a more, I think it's a more complex language. So we rewrote this, we rewrote the readme. I can run my tabs. Any questions? Anyone want to go home and rewrite something in another language?
Did you find, you said you converted your app over, you spent like another 2 or 3 hours to fix it. Was there some kind of like common theme or common issue that you found that you're running into?
Well, I wasn't as involved in I helped set up the prompt to run the AI part of it. Then I was on call that week, so I ended up working on the production issue most of that time. I'm not 100% sure what all they did. They just told me they spent about 3 hours. I do think a lot of that was set like we use Databricks, we use Datadog for our logs and stuff like that. I think a lot of they did have some time setting up some of our third-party applications that we use for alerting and for monitoring and that sort of stuff.
Before you ran that prompt, did you guys use like hand mode or anything like that for the AI to see what you would do before actually doing it? Just,
Yes, that is one of the things that we did when we ran it. It was pretty planned for us. And as part of that plan, we also had to create the prompt for us. And that helped out, I think, a lot. Like I said, I think we would have had a much better time if we had better test coverage. But we had what we had,
So how different is the agent inside Z when compared to Copilot or Cursor?
It's exactly the same. Matter of fact, so right now, if you look at this, there, I'm running this page, let's move it back up. So, I am running the Z agent, and I'm using, you can't see it, I'm running the Z agent and I'm running 12 with 4.7. What I can do is right now, I just switched, I'm using the Copilot. This is the Copilot agent that if you're in VS Code and you want to select an agent, you have to come down there and you can select which one of those agents you want to use. You don't need to go to view an agent. Zed does not do that. Zed, all you have to do is I want to do a PR review with the changes on this branch. It will switch to the code review agent and do that for you. Wasn't going to give a Zed talk today, but if you have any questions about Zed, it's my favorite editor. And I will sit here and talk for the next hour about it if you live it, so I suggest. It's just so fast.
Do you think Zed would be useful for everyone, or would it be difficult as a beginner to jump into Zed versus like a VS Code that's beginner friendly?
I think it's better.
Really?
And the reason I say that is if you're in VS Code, the only really way, I think, to make VS Code as user-friendly for your different languages is to have a profile, right? So you have a profile for Node, you have a profile for Python, you have a profile for Java, whatever you want, right? And that's fine, but as you're switching languages, you have to switch which profile you're using. And if you forget, you'll just end up being in a Python folder, and you'll be in your Go profile, and you're like, well, why isn't something working? Zed doesn't have profiles like that. It knows, I don't know if you can see right down here in the, show it. Okay, I'm going to mark that folder. But right down here, it shows that I'm in a Go file. So it loads, while I'm in this file, it loads all the Go stuff. If I switch to a Python file or Python folder, it will load up the Python stuff for me automatically. Now I will say, they just recently got a GUI interface for its settings. Before that, and they still have them all in a JSON file. That part can be a little bit of a pain, but once again, you can actually ask Copilot to fix your settings for you. Hey, when you're doing a bunch of Go programming, can you set my settings so that it has all the best Go practice? And it will do that.
Yes.
And it's open source. You can actually work on this. I have put in one code change form that they rejected, but I'm not really a Rust developer, so this is what it is.
Could you also speak about your custom agents? I'm just curious what it is and how you build them.
I did not build them. They were built by another team of my client, and they just provided them to the whole company. So they built them, I installed them, and then I just use them. Now, it is just in a repo. I've used them before. I haven't went in and made any changes to them myself, but I could. But yeah, I didn't build them.
Are they just a set of prompts or are they like branching code?
Yeah, they're just like your Copilot instruction file, which is nothing but a markdown file.
It's roughly equivalent to like a skill code club?
Yeah.
Clock.
Yeah, so like the code review one here, it's really nothing but an instruction or a skill, whatever you want to call it.
It's like instructions.
Only they don't tell it to call you my liege, and I think that's one of the most important rules that I have set up.
Agreed.
I like it.
Yeah.
And mainly I use that one for, I don't know, whenever I use AI, I'm always like, okay, I set these instructions up, but did you actually use any of them? You put something like that in there, and you can tell. If if at the end of your prompt's done working, if it doesn't call you my leads, you know it didn't get this file. You know, so.
That's a good idea. I've had times when I've run it based on saying, hey, here's the set of files I want you to refer to. It gave me an answer that was clearly not from that set of files, but sometimes it also gives me an answer that's maybe from that set of files, and then I gotta kind of research and figure out if they really use them or not. So that's interesting. That would be a quick way to kind of know that it's looking at them at least, and then from there troubleshoot.
Absolutely. And I would love to take credit for that one, but our staff engineer and my client came with that, and I have stolen it. Like I said, I use that for my day-to-day driver. When I'm working with some of my teammates, because we do pair programming probably 90% of the time, they like to use IntelliJ. So I will use IntelliJ when I'm pairing with them because I like to be speaking the same editor language. But this is what I use day to day. And I've been happy every Wednesday that does a major release. So tomorrow they're going to put out a major release. And, any other? Yes.
You talked about breaking things down into smaller pieces, and I'm assuming you didn't just one-shot this and then the whole rebuild at once. How far down did you break it down, like to the file level, to the feature level, and then what did you do for verification between?
Well, I think when, like, the breaking it down farther was one of the big things that Claude suggested I do. And when Claude was saying break it down in smaller pieces, it wasn't talking about the code itself, it was talking about the prompt. So that's when you really need to think about your prompts. Like if you want to use, like if you go to Python, if you want to use UV, or you want to use Python, or whatever package you want, you need to put that in there. You need to spell things out as much as possible. Don't, you know, when I first did this, my very first prompt was convert this to Python. And it kind of did, but it was horrible. So I just kept iterating on it, and when I finally got it to where I liked it, you know, it was like, okay, now let's make a better prompt. Did it that way. But I will also say, like I said, this was a very, very simple patch. It only had a couple, like, you know, a couple TypeScript files for Python project. More tests than it has actual code. But it worked.
You also need some ideas the light project you mentioned. How complex was it? Just to get an idea.
It wasn't an overly complex application, but it was an application that read off a queue in SQS will give one last shameless plug. If you guys have anything you want to talk about, have see a talk, let us know, or come up and do one yourself. I always say if I can do one, you can do one. All right. I will stick around for a while.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.